Good evening and Happy New Year. I'm Gerald Harris. Byron Brown is off this week. Tonight on Mississippi Insight, one-on-one with Congressman Bennie Thompson. Mississippi's lone Democratic congressman and head of the Homeland Security Committee is here. He's talking impeachment, immigration, and the 2020 election. Also, what, if anything, can be accomplished in a divided Congress? It's all tonight on a special edition of Mississippi Insight. Congress is out of session until next week, and when they return, there's a lot to accomplish with impeachment at the top. And of course, 2020 is an election year. Now, joining me now in studio is Congressman Bennie Thompson. Congressman, you just held the impeachment vote. Tell your constituents and people of Mississippi how you voted and why.
Well, I voted for both articles of impeachment. I looked at the evidence, and clearly it said that, number one, the president did conspire with a foreign government against a United States citizen. That's basically against all we stand for as a nation. And obviously the fact that he did not cooperate in any manner with getting the information necessary to look at it is a matter of obstruction. So we have a separate and co-equal branches of government: executive, judicial, and legislative. And clearly, the executive branch, in my mind and in the minds of a number of people in Congress, is wrong.
Could this blow back on the Democrats that currently control the House?
Well, I don't think so. You know, the framers of the Constitution put impeachment proceedings there for a reason. And I'm convinced that the reason exercised in this instance is the proper reason. We go to Washington to take positions, and those positions sometimes they're popular and sometimes they're not. We just want them to be right.
And you talked about voting for both articles of impeachment. One of those articles is obstruction of Congress. You chair the House Homeland Security Committee. It's been a committee you stood on since its inception following 9/11. And you told me just a second ago that it's the worst that you have seen beyond impeachment and complying with congressionally authorized subpoenas.
Well, you know, I did, and you're absolutely correct. Until this administration, it was considered business as usual for committees to request certain information. The subpoena power was always the last resort, and you very rarely used it. We've used it on a number of occasions this time to get publicly available information. So they're making it very difficult. In addition, we can't get witnesses to come to the committee and offer testimony like we have in the past.
The House has yet to send those impeachment articles to the Senate. Do you agree with that?
Well, I agree with Speaker Pelosi when she says that she needs some understanding as to how they're going to proceed. I'm concerned when we have people like Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell who are saying that they've already made up their mind without looking at any evidence because they've talked to the president. And so I want you to understand, he provided no witnesses, he provided no written information, and yet he said it's not fair. Well, you had an opportunity to present your witnesses, to present testimony as well as information, but you didn't. So Speaker Pelosi has been vigilant on this issue, and I'm convinced that she will win out in the end.
And could this, if he's not removed from the Senate, and it's likely that he's not because it's controlled by Republicans, can there be any action on any legislation coming up in the new year? We have a whole year until election.
Yeah, that's right. This will probably come to some conclusion in January or mid-February. But as you know, by that time, our primary season starts in March, and it goes on actually until September. So the likelihood of a lot of legislation being brought forth over the next year is very slim. It's a political year. And my experience in the body is that in those years, you get very little accomplished on the legislative side.
And following your Twitter, you've mentioned that the House has passed a number of bills, including prescription drug prices, healthcare issues, and things of that nature. And you've mentioned that it's laying in the, quote, graveyard at the Senate.
Well, you know, we've passed over 400 bills in the House of Representatives, and we've sent them to the Senate. And it's the legislative graveyard. And we've had 5 hospitals to close here in Mississippi. We have a number of counties that are medically underserved, a number of persons on Medicare, Medicaid, who could benefit from a prescription drug pricing reduction. But we can't get the Senate to bring it up. Mitch McConnell has basically said, unless he gets the nod from the White House, he's not bringing up anything. And obviously, to this point, he's not.
Talking about presidential politics, your organization that you are chairing will be hosting a debate coming up just a week before this, the Super Tuesday primary. Talk to us about that and the initiative there.
Well, I chair the Congressional Black Caucus Institute, which is a 501c4, and every election cycle, we request of Democrats and Republicans to host debates. The Democrats took us up on it. We've settled on February 25th in Charleston, South Carolina, which is a week before Super Tuesday, and it's the last Democratic debate before Super Tuesday. So we're excited about it. I'm not sure how many candidates will be left by then, but I think the smaller the field, the greater the attendance in terms of viewership will be. And just for the record, CBS is co-sponsoring it with us.
All right, so you probably see it right here on our network.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons why you're not endorsing any presidential candidate at this moment.
That's correct. I chair the Institute, and the debate is a premier situation, and I wouldn't want to complicate that. But as soon as the debate's over with, I think you can see Bennie Thompson supporting a Democrat for Congress, for the president.
And what should they be on the campaign talking about as you're looking at a potential candidates? What should be at the main focus of their voters' minds and getting out the vote?
Well, for young people, college affordability. I run up on not just young people in college, but I run up on people who've been working 15, 20 years who's still paying back student loans. We shouldn't obligate our best talent for 20 or 30 years to pay back debt. So we have to come up with a program to retire student debt and some forgiveness. You know, we bailed out the auto industry, we bailed out the airline industry. Why can't we bail out those students in that area? So we want to look at that. We need to get the prescription drug benefit across the finish line. We need to look at the Affordable Care Act, make sure that any other hiccups associated with it we fixed. We really thought we could get a transportation bill passed. Our highways and bridges are in deplorable condition. The president said he was going to bring forth the bill, but he didn't. And so I would love to see one, but in this environment, I doubt it. Lastly, the tariffs on China. The president has basically devastated the soybean and other crops in this country to the point that we're having to subsidize millionaire farmers just to stay afloat. If he had just kept his hands out of the tariff business and let Congress do some of its work, if there were problems, we could have worked those out. But he didn't.
And there was another attack this time at a synagogue. This is becoming more rampant. Your response?
Well, until I just got a bill passed this session called the Data Act, which requires the FBI to publish the terrorism statistics. They haven't done that in about 10 years. That's one step to let the public know. The other thing what we've done is we ramped up nonprofit monies available for churches and synagogues to protect themselves. We put together a unit in Homeland Security that will help train churches and other houses of worship to protect themselves. It's unfortunate in this day and time that you have to arm yourself to go to church. We hope we can work through this over time, but for the moment, we're going to provide additional training available to houses of worship to protect themselves. You shouldn't have to do that, but these are strange times, unfortunately, and so we see it very seriously, and domestic terrorism is now on a rise greater than any other issue in this country. The foreign terrorist threat, based on the statistics, is no longer a problem. Our problem right now is what you saw happen in New York, what you saw happen in Texas, is our biggest threat.
Your friend, John Lewis, Representative John Lewis, announced that he had pancreatic cancer. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, obviously all of us will have John Lewis in our prayers for quite a while. He is not just a civil rights icon, but he's a wonderful person. I have about 10 requests of people trying to get him to come speak here in Mississippi. I mean, they love him. And so he's that kind of individual. And so our prayers are with him. I've known him for over 50 years. He's just a wonderful, kind person. And what you see is what you get. Very principled. And even the people who vehemently disagree with his stance on civil rights and others, they like John Lewis as an individual. And I can only say that we all wish him well.
You held hearings on immigration raids. Where does that probe stand, and what did you find out when you held those hearings?
Well, we found out that the system of immigration reached down to the lowest point. The people who are employing the people are still in business. Those communities where those people live are hurting. Businesses have closed. A lot of things have precipitated the raids. That doesn't say that people shouldn't try to come here legally, but many of those individuals had been here over 15 years, paying taxes, doing a lot of things. So I would say, in terms of our system of immigration, we ought to concentrate on the people. If we're going to lock people up, let's lock the people up who are doing the hiring, and not lock the people up who are doing the work.
And talk about the economic impact of doing that work. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't want to do the work.
Well, when I was in Forest last week, and a lot of my friends are saying many of those jobs are going unfulfilled. It's not sexy work, it's not easy work, it's very difficult. And when people are not doing the jobs, then what you have, those communities suffer. And as I said, businesses have closed, and many of those families are basically destitute because they can't go back to work, but they don't have anywhere else to go. And so now the churches have stepped in, and they are basically taking care of families who used to take care of themselves. And again, all the people that were picked up at work. They wasn't standing on the street corner. They wasn't selling drugs. They wasn't doing anything that would harm the citizens of that community. And they were paying taxes. So I would want our system, and I'm for comprehensive immigration reform. I think people ought to have a pathway to citizenship. If they can come 1,000, 1,500 miles through no man's land to get to the United States of America just to work, and they work doing the kind of work nobody else wants to do. In my district, they're working at cotton gins. In other parts of the state, they're digging potatoes, and I mean, just doing tough work. And so I would say, as a compassionate nation, we ought to be able to work this out. And I go back next week, looking forward, to trying to come up with a solution.
Just to talk a little bit about local politics, there's a new administration coming in January to kind of address Mississippi's biggest problems, and you kind of touched on it a little bit before. It doesn't seem like we're going to get a nationwide infrastructure program done where the federal government can help out Mississippi as one of many states. What do they have to do locally to fix these bridges and these roads?
Well, in the absence of federal support, I think the worst thing you can do is continue to cut taxes. You have to have a source of income. You have to have a source of income directed at certain things. We just picked up the lottery here in Mississippi. I would hope that you won't see any shenanigans played with the lottery that we saw played with the casino industry. When the casinos came to Mississippi, they were told that the money would be earmarked for education and roads. Well, that was right, but they took the money out of the general fund and replaced it with casino money. They didn't put it on top of the existing general fund revenue. So it was really a net gain. There was no sum gain. And so I hope the politicians here in the state don't do that. Apart from that, you also have to recognize that for every dollar that's sent to Washington, Mississippi gets $3 back. So we need all the help we can get. And so the federal participation in our state is a must.
And also, healthcare is a big issue. Mississippi remains one of the most underinsured populations. The governor-elect has indicated that he doesn't want to take any federal money to make that happen. However, the lieutenant governor has had his ear open. What are you hopeful the outcome will be in the 3 months that they work? Well,
I think the Medicaid expansion dollars is a godsend to a state like Mississippi. When you look at other states, our neighbor to the west, Louisiana, decided to accept the Medicaid expansion dollars, and they've done wonders with not just their primary health system, but the hospital system, because the money comes with no strings attached. It comes with saying, Mississippi or Louisiana, you determine what your priorities are. We've had 5 hospitals to close in the last 2 years, and they probably won't come back. And we have other hospitals that are bordering on closing. And so we could shore up that system with the Medicaid expansion dollars. But to not accept the money is not in the best interest of the citizens of this state. emergency rooms are closing. There are a number of things that we have to address, and you know, everybody can't get to Jackson. So you're gonna have to go some of the other places, and in order for those places to survive, you're gonna have a healthcare system that's supported. And so those dollars that Mississippi has not picked up through Medicaid expansion, I would hope that this incoming administration would have a change of heart.
All right, Congressman Bennie Thompson, talking everything from impeachment to your friend John Lewis to right here Mississippi politics. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We'll have more after this. A reminder, the 2020 legislative session opens this coming Tuesday. 12 News will be live at the Capitol all day for full coverage both on air and online at WJTV.com. And be sure to join us. A special thanks to Congressman Bennie Thompson for joining us tonight. Thanks to you for watching. Byron Brown will be back next Saturday night. I'm Gerald Harris. Have a happy New Year and good night.